Yesterday we were discussing that for every NFA, given any NFA, for every NFA we can always have DFA. So whenever you give me a machine which is NFA, I can construct a DFA for it without any problem, right? So what we did, we took NFA with the components Qn, sigma, delta n, Fn and Q0 n, and with each of them we actually modified. So we constructed a new machine which had a new set of possible states. Alphabet remained same, but a new transition function, set of final states, and finally a different start state, right? So we already understood the construction, but what remains to prove, complete the proof, is proving that delta n cap for Q0 n w is equals to delta d cap Q0 d. And if I have to write at place of Q0 d, I can just write in parenthesis is Q0 n comma w. This is representing Q0 d, right, as per our construction. So if you are able to prove this, I think that will be the complete proof saying that both the machines are equivalent. What it says that is, starting from the start state on the NFA, wherever you reach with the string w, the same will be captured when you start at this state Q0 n, the single set with just single state of the NFA Q0 and a string, both will take you to the same place. So we will not be covering this in this online teaching, but I suggest you to go back and read from the book. It's a very basic inductive proof where you start with w equals to 0, w equals to epsilon, basically 0 length string, it holds, and then you assume that for any w it holds, and then you increase the length of the w by one more, and you will realize that it still holds. So it's a very simple basic proof by induction, so I'm not covering it because I feel that you might be able to understand very easily. So you must go back and read this proof, and that's what makes the whole proof proof complete, that for every NFA we have an equivalent DFA. Now the next thing that we were saying was, and see, this all happens just because when you are running from this is your state Q0 n, and here on the DFA you are taking Q0 n, sorry, yeah. Now when you, for any symbol A, when you move to different states here, what happens here? This also moves to another state which actually takes union of all these states, right? So if you have some 1, 2, 3 here, it is going to capture 1, 2, 3 as per its transition function that we defined, right, if you remember yesterday. So further, if you expand into some branches, this level is going to do what? Go to another state which actually captures union of all these. You take the union of this level, that gets captured, and that is the proof actually that you prove by this, that if you take any string, wherever you gonna reach, you take that state. So here it will be in parenthesis, and this will be actually capturing the same, right, when you started from the start state of the DFA. And if you are able to capture the same, so you can decide whether this is final or this is final, whether this is accepting the string. It will do the same because of the selection of the final states. So if it is not clear, you may ask questions, otherwise we are moving to the next concept, which I already asked you to read, which was conversion from epsilon NFA to DFA. I am going to do the direct version. You are expected to read also the intermediate one, that converting the ENFA into DFA. Sorry, ENFA into NFA. Right. So, okay. Now, so I asked you guys to read it, right? How many of you already read? Okay, so let's take this one ENFA and try to see what actually is happening. So let's say this is Q0. At A, you are going to Q1, and then at epsilon you are going to Q2, at epsilon you are going to Q3, and then further at B you are going to Q4. Right. So this is one machine. Now there is something called E closure, a function E closure. I'm just writing E, but you should read E as E closure. Right. So it is epsilon closure of a set of states. So for any given set of states, you can define this function. So I'm defining E closure for a given state, let's say Q0. So this is actually, you define, let me try to define it in a, so let's take R is a set of states. So if I'm defining E of R, so it contains all the states Q such that Q can be reached from R by traveling along zero or more epsilon arrows. So E of R, here R is denoting actually a set of states. So here when you say Q can be reached from R, because if R is a single state it makes sense, but if you are having multiple states in R, if R is actually R1, R2 likewise, then E of R you may understand as union of over I's, it is E of all, sorry, it is E of Ri's. So you take E of Ri's and you take the union of that, that is going to give you the E of R. So for each of the element states in the set R, for each of them you try to see that in to what all states can you reach using 0 or more epsilon arrows. So for example, if you see this Q0, right, so Q0 goes to this. So if I have to find, let's just try writing this. So in case of ENFA, you will realize that apart from the input symbols, you will have another possibility of epsilon. So Q0 at A, it goes to Q1, Q0 at B, it goes to nowhere, so 5, Q0 at epsilon, it goes to Q3, q1 at epsilon, it goes to q2. q1 at a, q1 at b is phi and phi. q3 at a, q3 at a it goes to phi, q3 at b it goes to q4, at epsilon it is phi, and q4 for everything it is phi. Now if I have to find E closure of the states, right? E closure of the state. So for Q0, what will be the E closure? So using 0 or more epsilon arrows. So see, if you use one epsilon arrow, you are able to reach to Q3, but using epsilon also you remain on the same state. If you remember when we were talking about for start state, it says that with empty string you are able to move to the start state. So for every state it is already by default part of its E closure. So certainly when you are finding the E closure, Q0 will be by default part of it. But in addition to that, if you are using some epsilon arrows, so one arrow is present, so Q0, Q3. After Q3, you don't have anything. Now, if you take maybe Q1, so Q1 by default will be present there, and also Q2. For Q3, only Q3 is there. For Q4, only Q4 is there. So I think it's very simple to understand what is E closure for a state, and E closure for a set of a state is taking the union of the E closure for each and every state. So there is a question that on Q0 at epsilon doesn't yeah, so I think we already answered that, right? So okay, so if this is clear, let us try doing just one more quick example just to be very much sure what we understood so far. So let's take this another ENFA. I'm just drawing it randomly just for your. This is Q0. You are going to Q1. At B, you are going to Q2. Q1 is epsilon, it is going to Q3, and Q2 okay, good. Now let's try to find out what is happening in this ENFA. So again there are 4 states, Q0, Q1, Q2 and Q3. For each of these states, what all input symbols are there? There is A and B, 2 different input alphabets. Then you have epsilon also because it is ENFA. And then finally we will also try to find what is the E closure for this. So Q0 at A, it goes to Q1, and at B it goes to Q2. Rest of the entries are phi. I am not writing phi for each of them. You can understood when I am not writing anything. It's not black, it's phi. Now Q0 at epsilon, does it go anywhere? Nowhere. Q1 at epsilon, it goes to Q3. Q2 at epsilon, it goes to Q1, and Q3 at epsilon, it goes to Q0. Now let's find out what is the E closure of Q0. Can you answer? E closure of Q0. Good. So E closure of Q0 will be simply Q0. There is no other epsilon move from Q0. Therefore, you will just have Q0 here. What about Q1? E closure of Q1. So E closure of Q1, when you will try to find out, right? What it will say? It will say certainly it will contain Q1, but 0 or more epsilon arrows that you take further. So E closure of Q1 is going to Q3 by 1 arrow or going to Q0 by 2 arrows. So it will contain Q1, Q3 and also Q0, because if you remember the definition, we said traveling along 0 or more number of epsilon arrows. You just have to use epsilon arrows only. You cannot use any other arrow. So therefore it will be Q1, Q3, Q0. What about Q2? What is the E closure of Q2? Good. So all states, basically Q0, Q1, Q2, Q3. Q2 is by default there, but from Q2 you can go to Q1 using a single epsilon. Therefore Q1 is appearing. With 2 epsilon transitions, you can reach from Q2 to Q3 without spending any symbol, right? So what we are trying to find in E closure, that without spending any symbol, without reading any symbol, still you are able to transit from Q2 to Q3. So that is also E closure of Q2. So Q3 is present, and using 3 epsilon arrows you can also reach to Q0. Therefore Q0 is also present there. Now for Q3 it is simply Q3 and Q0. So I think you are clear with what is E closure for a given state. You have to take all possibilities. For example, for Q2 you got all the states as E closure. Now if that is understood, so then the algorithm to really construct for a given ENFA, how to construct it into DFA, it's a very similar algorithm that you had for the NFAs. The only difference is the step 1. So what is ENFA? It is, again I can define as 5 tuple system. So let me say it has Q, E as the possible states, then it has delta E as the transition function, then it has epsilon, it has Q0 E and FE. Now this is the 5 tuple system, and we will construct from this 5 tuple system we will use this 5 tuple system to construct another machine which will be a DFA, and this will be running the same thing. So QD, then delta D, epsilon, Q0D and FD. So again, to define what is the first component, it is QD. QD will be same as what you did for the NFA. It will be power set of QE. Now second step is finding delta D. Now here I am taking R. This R is actually some member of QD. So for R, and let's take a input symbol from sigma. So for RA, what transition is defined? It will be actually all Q part of QE such that Q belongs to, if I have to write, it is in the E closure of all the states that you are able to reach using for some R part of R. So again, if I have to just briefly describe it, it is just saying that delta D of RA is equals to taking the union of E closure of delta E for RA, for or R belonging to R. Basically, for every element you see on a given symbol where you are going, and then for each of those symbols you take the epsilon move, right? So this is a very basic description. Once you got this, the third one, if you try to find out about FD, right? So here the FD will be still the same, such as you had there. It is actually, you will have R belonging to QD such that R intersection FE is not phi. Now, the most important difference comes here apart from this stage, which is that your Q0D is not just the start symbol of the ENFA, it is actually E closure of the starting state of the ENFA. That's all. So that is the difference. So here the start state is not just the start state of the ENFA, but E closure of the start state of the ENFA. And then whenever you are doing a transition, so anyway, you would, if you remember for NFA, what you were doing, you were just taking the union of the outputs when you would have on NFA for these states. But here, apart from, after taking the union for each of the elements, you're gonna apply the E closure, right? So that is something important that we are doing in addition to that. So I think I will leave this for the practice session if you will have, or you to really work on the example. If you go back and take this example, we may quickly do that. Okay, let's do one example just to figure it out, so that even if we don't have a practice session. So let's take this ENFA. Okay, so let's say that this is an ENFA given to you. It's an ENFA, that's why you have multiple moves for A. So if I have to really write the transition table for this, so 1, 2, 3, and for A and B and epsilon 3 possibilities. 1 at A, where does it go? Nowhere. 1 at B, it goes to 2. 1 at epsilon, it goes to 3. 2 at A, it goes to 2, 3. 2 at B, it goes to 3. 2 at epsilon, it goes nowhere. 3 at A, it goes to 1. 3 at B, it goes nowhere. And 3 at epsilon, it goes nowhere. Right. Now if I have to find the E closure of the states, so if I have to find for 1, what will is the E closure? Just 1, no, 1, 3. For 2, it is just 2. For 3, it is just 3. Right. Now, if I have to find the DFA, equivalent DFA, so I can just, there are 3 states, so again 8 states I can mark, and then I can try finding the transitions. But at place of doing that, if you remember in the last class, we said we might end up getting so many useless states which are not part of. So we start with the start state. What is the start state of the DFA? It is E closure of the start state of ENFA. So in this case, what will be the starting state for the DFA? Can you answer? I'm asking what will be the starting state of DFA when we are converting from this ENFA to DFA. Good. So basically you have to find the E closure of the start state of ENFA, and E of 1 is actually 1 3. So we will be starting with 1 3 as the start state. And again you have just 2 because it's a DFA, so we will have just these. Now 1 3 at A, when you have to find out delta of 1 3 at A, what will be the value? So if you are able to recall, it was that you have to find union of, for each of these you have to find the delta on the ENFA transition. What is the value for RA, right? Take the union of over R. Now, and for this delta you have to finally take the E closure. So for 1, if you try to find on ENFA, where is it going? On A. So 1 is on A, where is it going? 1 at A, it is not going anywhere, right? 1 at A is not going anywhere, so it is phi. And then E closure of phi is nowhere, right? You are not going anywhere, it is still phi. Now if you find for this 2, sorry, it's not 2, it's 3, right? This is actually 3, 1 and 3. So 3 at A, where are you going? 3 at A, you are going to 1. So once you get 1, you have to take E closure of that, and E closure of 1 is 1 3. So therefore once you take the union of 5 with 1 3, you're gonna get 1 3. Is it clear how we got it? We are saying that for 1, when you state 1, when you are looking for A, you are not going anywhere, it is phi. For 3, when you are looking at A, you are going to 1. Now for this thing you have to take the E closure. When you take the E closure of this phi, this is phi, it gives you still phi. When you take E closure of state 1, it gives you 1 and 3 both. Now when you take the union of these two, you get the end result as 1 3. Is it clear? Okay. If it is clear, then can you tell me what will be the answer for B? So 2, because 1 at B goes to 2, 3 at B goes nowhere. When you take the E closure of each, so 1 goes at B to 2, E closure of 2 is 2, 3 at B goes nowhere, and for phi, E closure is phi, so therefore just you get 2. Very good. Now I found out one new state, so I will just explore this one. At place of exploring all 8 possible states, I will just explore the new ones. So at 2, what is going to happen? 2 at A, where do I go? 2 at A, I go. What is the answer for 2 at A? Good. 2 3, because 2 at A goes to 2 3, and 2 3, the E closure for 2 and 3 you have to take the union. So E closure for 2 is 2, E closure for 3 is 3, taking the union you still get 2 3. So therefore 2 3 is the answer. For 2 at B, you just get 3, I guess, right? Now E close up, now you have to explore 2 and 3 again, and then further you got another state 3, so you have to explore for that also. Now 2 3 at A, where do you go? 2 3 at A, you go to 2 at A, you go to 2 3, 3 at A, you go to 1, 2 3 1. Now for 1 2 3, for each of them you have to take the E closure, and when you do the union anyway you gonna get 1 2 3, right? Simple. And 2 3 at B, you just gonna get 3. I'm writing, you may just see it. 3 at A, because this is a new state, and by the way you got another new state 1 2 3, so you have to explore this one also. Now 3 at A, where do you go? 3 at A, you go to 1 and take the E closure of that, you gonna get 1 3. 3 at B, you get 5, and therefore it will remain 5. 1 2 3 at A, 1 2 3 at A, if you see, it goes to 1 2 3 only, you'll realize it. And 1 2 3 at B, you go to 2 3. Phi is another new state that you have identified, so for phi also you have to write the possibility. Phi at A, it remains at phi, phi at B, it remains at phi. What is the final state in this all? Those states that contain at least one of the final states. So 1 is the final state here, so therefore this state and this state, these two states will be one of the final states. So you realize, if I have taken the direct possibility, 8 states might have come, but by doing this I am able to just find a DFA with 6 number of states. So 2 useless states are not appearing here, and this phi is actually a dead state, that whenever you are at 3 and you get a B, you go to dead state. So that is the conversion from ENFA to DFA. You will, if you try to find the language, you will realize that the language of both machines are same. Again, you can prove it using the same way I was talking about NFA. So at place of N, it will be E. That delta E cap for Q0 epsilon W is equals to, when you take the delta D, E closure of Q0. Right. So I think you should also read the proof for this, and why it holds. If you try to understand the concept, what is happening here, you are at Q0 on the NFA, on the ENFA, right? When you are at Q0 and you get A, what happens at A? Where all possible places are you able to reach? So at A, when is the first symbol, if there were some already intermediate states, so on A, where are you going? So before going here, if there were some states where you can reach using epsilon moves, so it takes an intermediate step, right? With epsilon, which all places? With 1 epsilon or epsilon to the power I, where I is greater or equals to 0. You are taking that with epsilon to the power I, wherever you are able to move. You take A from there, right? And even after taking the A where you are reaching, you further take epsilon possibilities from there. Right? So you are actually, apart from the NFA thing, you are taking these 2 other things. Before moving, you are taking all possible transition with epsilon move, and after that also. So your final answer after A will be at this level. Right. So that is why what we do, whenever we start with Q0E, we say you take the E closure. When you take the E closure, by default you will reach to this level. Now for this level you are trying to find on A, where are you going. So for each of these members at A, you are looking where are you going at delta on the NFA machine. For each of them you find the E closure, which is the same thing that we are doing on the ENFA, and then you take the union of that. So you see the state that you are getting on the DFA here is same as what you will be getting on the, it will be capturing the same information that you would have got on this ENFA. And at the last level, at the final state, whatever number of states you might have reached, up to this point, that will be captured by the last state on the DFA, and because of our assumption for the final state, that if any of these states, right, any of the states that you have stored on this particular single state on the DFA, if any of the element is actually a final state, representing a final state of the ENFA, you say accept. It is actually exhibiting the same, that if there is any accepting branch, that brings you up to the last level, and this is one of the final state. So it captures that whole thing. So given a machine, I am able to construct another machine which actually simulates this machine. So it is a proof that for every ENFA, I am able to design a machine which is actually as per the rules of DFA, but yet it is able to simulate every single move of the ENFA. Therefore, and to prove this, you have to prove exactly what you are saying, that delta cap of Q0E on W for delta E, it will be equivalent to delta cap of D for Q0D W. This is the same thing. You have to prove it by induction. Again, I leave it to you for you to read. It's a very simple, again, prove by induction. So let us move to the next concept. Do practice a lot of examples for converting ENFA to DFA. Also, you should try converting ENFA to DFA. So it might be asked to just remove the epsilon moves. It might be asked, don't convert it into DFA, but just remove the epsilon moves. So there is also a method given, removing the epsilon moves. So you have to take the help of eCloser basically to include more states there. So that I again leave you to further explore in that direction. Now let's understood what we have understood so far. So we talked about three different machines. First we talked about DFA, then we talked about NFA, then we talked about ENFA. We definitely understood that if there is a class of DFA, so let's say that this is class of all possible DFAs. And for each element of this class, if you take the language of this DFA is kept in another class, right? So it is mapped to this one. Similarly, if there is another DFA, it is mapped to here. So this is basically class of languages of all possible DFAs. So it is class of languages of all possible DFAs. Now, this class is called regular language. So regular languages are those languages for which you have some DFA that can express it. So basically what you are saying, regular languages are those languages for which there exists a DFA. Always, whenever you say a language is regular, that means this language is actually a language of a DFA machine. Therefore, certainly that machine exists. Then, what about this class of NFAs? Now, can I say the class of NFA also actually exhibit the same language? Because why it will be same? Because whenever you have an NFA, it has an equivalent DFA, right? For every NFA, there is an equivalent DFA. So this DFA already has a marking as a language. So this NFA is also pointing towards the same language, right? So whatever the language you had here, this DFA is pointing the same. So therefore, for every NFA, whatever the language of NFA you will try to find, it will be language of some DFA. And therefore, language of all possible NFA is same as language of all possible DFAs, and therefore language of NFA, if you try to find for all possible NFAs, it is also representing the same set regular languages. In the same way, you can say that if you are picking the ENFAs and again picking some ENFA, so the language of ENFA, if you try to figure it out, it is same that because this ENFA you can construct into a DFA at this point, and this DFA has the representing to the same language. So therefore, again I can use the same, that if you are saying this regular languages, so regular language represents all possible languages for DFAs or NFAs or ENFAs. So whenever you say that L is a regular language, L is a regular language, then you should be able to trivially make that there exists either a DFA, I can always design a DFA or NFA or ENFA, anything. Anyway, if you are able to design a DFA, that means it is NFA or ENFA, or NFA or ENFA. So there is always possibility to design at least one of these type of machines, right? Yes, Anmol asked that every DFA also has an NFA and ENFA. It's trivial, right? DFA is by default NFA, because NFA requires actually a more relaxed version of DFA. So every DFA is still a NFA, and same thing, every NFA is an ENFA, right? You just don't have upsell and move, so that's okay. So therefore every NFA is also ENFA. So every DFA is also ENFA. So correct, Samarth made the right statement that we can make these three type of machines for every regular language, right? Whenever a language is said to be regular, you should be able to design a machine of each of these three types. You should be able to, and by default if you design a DFA, it becomes NFA and ENFA. If you design a NFA, you can construct a DFA using the algorithm, or if you design ENFA, you can further construct a DFA or ENFA. Can multiple languages have same NFA or ENFA? I will talk about that. Let's not go in detail of that as of now. We'll come back to this question. Can there be multiple languages that represents the same NFA? Right. The answer is no, but why it is no? I think that can be left as an exercise. You can easily understand if there is a language, that means you are talking about what? Fixed strings, right? You are talking about finite length strings for that language. So you cannot have a single NFA representing two different languages. That means if, let me just answer this question, I think that's an interesting question. If there is a machine NFA and it is representing for two different languages L1 and L2, then L1 must have to be equals to L2. Otherwise, if L1 minus L2 is actually not phi, then there is a problem. So the answer to the that whether can we have multiple languages for, with the same NFA or ENFA, the answer is no. For a given machine, there is a single unique language. But for a given language, you can design multiple machines. That is true. What Shashwat tried to answer is that if you add some useless states and all that, keep adding some redundant states, so your machine might get bigger and bigger and bigger, but still the language remains same. Right? Is it clear? Okay. So now this regular languages, now it's interesting to find that, okay, there is a class of languages, and this, what is a regular class of regular languages? It is the set of all possible formal languages. What are formal languages? It is basically a subset of sigma star for a given sigma, right? Any formal language. So a set of formal languages are called to be regular, or a formal language is called to be a regular language when you can design a DFA, or you can design NFA, or you can design ENFA. So whenever it is asked you to prove that, whenever the question comes that prove that L is regular, remember this, whenever a question comes that prove that L is regular, it is being asked that design a finite automaton for it. Why I am saying finite automaton? It can be of the any type. You may design a DFA, NFA, or ENFA. You are free to construct any of the three types of these machine, but whenever you want to prove that, you should be able to design a machine. And in this machine, what is sure? There is a start state, there may be some final states, and there are transitions, right? So this is the way of proving that a language is regular. Now let us try to understand some properties of this language. So just like any, because a language is basically a set of strings, so there can be multiple properties that can be studied for the languages. For example, union, concatenation, then you can have star, intersection, then you can have other operations, sorry, not the properties, the operations that you can perform on languages. So intersection, then you can have a difference, then complement, and finally the reversal operation. Now let's say that there are two languages, L1 and L2, right? So when you do the union, L1 union L2, I think it is trivial, right? So L1 union L2 will contain all string x such that x is either part of L1 or x is part of L2. I think this is a basic set theory understanding, right? So if you say that some string is part of L1 L2, that means it has to be coming from L1 or L2. For concatenation, if you are defining it, so L1, the symbol for concatenation is this. It's a small dot symbol kind of thing. So L1 concatenation L2 is defined as xy such that x is coming from L1 and y part is coming from L2, right? It's trivial, right? Now if I have to define a star, it is basically L1 star. So you are saying that it is basically union of, if I have to say, it is actually you are saying that you have so it's the same, this is union of power of L1 to the power k, for k starting with 0 and it keeps going on. So k equals to 0 starts. So basically if I have to say, it is like L1 to the power 0 union L1 to the power 1 union L2 to the power, sorry, L1 to the power 2 union likewise. What is a power? Power is basically the concatenation. So if I say L1 to the power 2, it is representing L1 concatenation with L1. When I say L1 to the power 3, it is basically you take L1 to the power 2 and you concatenate it again with L1. So here the power represents number of concatenation with itself. Now intersection, I think that is very trivial to define intersection of two languages. It is basically, if you see L1 star, it is same as sigma star. So in sigma star, what you have? You have sigma 1 to the power 0, which is epsilon, then sigma to the power n, that means 1 length symbols, then sigma to the power 2, that means length 2 symbols, all possible, and likewise. So it is the same way. So when you define sigma star, it is the same thing, sigma to the power 0, union sigma to the power 1, union sigma to the power 2, and union with rest. So this actually denotes your epsilon, this denotes just sigma, this denotes sigma dot sigma, and this denotes, this dot is the concatenation, and likewise. Now coming to intersection, if you have x, that means x is part of L1 and x is part of L2. Now when you come to difference of L1 minus L2, it is, if there is some x, that means x belongs to L1 and x does not belongs to L2, right? If it is part of L2, it will get deleted. So it is part of L1 but not L2. When you are finding the complement L1 complement, it is simply you take sigma minus L1. This is something you actually forget at the later stage. So I am saying that always remember what is a complement. Whenever you are trying to find a complement, you always take the sigma star and deduct this language L1, you're going to find L1 complement, not sigma, sorry, sigma star. Now, what is a reversal if I have to say? So if you are trying to find reversal, it is saying that you take the reversal of a string for every string belonging to L1. So it's like if my L1 is of this A, B and then C, D. So my L1 reversal will contain BA and DC. You flip the strings basically in the reverse order, and that is the reversal. For each string you apply the reversal and you take the union of that, exactly what is written here, and you're gonna get that. So is the definition of the operations clear to you? Are these definitions clear to you, or any doubt for any of the operations? Oh, so value of k will increase from 0 and it will keep increasing, right? Just like natural numbers. So you can take k as the natural numbers in addition to 0. So you have 0 plus natural numbers. So that is the power. So you are starting with, that's what you do in sigma, right? So you start with 0 and you keep going on. For all natural numbers, you take that power of the set. Is that answers your question, Anmol? Okay. So let us try seeing that if we apply these operations, what happens to the language. By the way, the main question that we gonna see that the closure property. What is the closure property? For example, when I say a natural number, so we say natural numbers are closed under addition operation. What do I mean by that? It means that whenever you take two numbers A and B from the set natural numbers, when you add A plus B, this number will also belong to the natural number. So after performing the operation, still the result will remain in the same original language. Natural numbers are a language, basically a set of numbers, right? Again, so if you pick any two numbers and you add them, still they will be part of natural numbers. So natural numbers, can I say that it is closed under division? So division is another operation for natural numbers, right? So this statement that natural numbers are closed under division operation, is it a correct statement? No, right? Good. Because you may take 3 divided by 5. This is not a correct natural number, right? After the division, you are not getting the result as a natural number. So therefore, it is not closed under this operation. So our main goal is to check the closure properties for all this: union, concatenation, intersection, subtraction, star operation, reversal, or you take complement, right? All these kind of operations that we were just talking about. What happens when you apply these operations on the regular languages? Do they remain closed under that operation or not? That's what we have to investigate. Before investigating for some, let's try to understand a different definition of, there is something called product automaton, right? So what is a product automaton? Let me quickly define it. So product automata is that if you are given with a DFA D1, another DFA D2, right? So this D1 is basically representing your Q1 sigma, and they are on the same alphabet: Q1 sigma delta 1, you have F1 and Q01, and similarly you have Q2 sigma delta 2, F2 and Q02. So using this two machines, you should be able to construct a new machine D, right, which has the state Q sigma using these two machines. I should be able to construct a product automaton D, which will have a state Q sigma delta F Q0, such that again the construction works the following: that here Q is actually Q1 cross Q2. What is Q1 cross Q2? It is a Cartesian product of two sets, right? So I hope you know that if I am taking Cartesian product of AB with CD, the Cartesian product, if I take these two sets, the final answer of this will be A C as a tuple, A D as a tuple, B C as a tuple, and finally B D as a tuple. So all possible tuples where the first member is coming from the first set and the second member is coming from the second set. So how many elements will be there in the Cartesian set? It will be, if it is M, it is N, so it will be M cross N. The cardinality of the Cartesian set will be M cross N, whatever the Cartesian product you have achieved, that's it. So whenever you are designing a product automaton, you are taking all possible tuples such that the first element is coming from the first machine, the second element is coming from the second machine. Second measure that you are taking is for the transition, right? So now delta on a tuple QP for a symbol A is equals to, so here you can understand Q is some element of Q1, P is some element of Q2, and A is some element of sigma. So for that, delta value will be equals to going to the tuple where on delta 1 you might have gone for QA, comma, delta 2 for PA. Right. So given a tuple on the product automaton, you are going to that tuple where the first element is derived by taking the state and the symbol as per the transition of the first automaton, and the second element of the target state on the product automaton will be according to the second element of the state and the input symbol. I think this is very trivial. Third is the start state Q0. So it is representing the Q01 and Q02. This epsilon is same. Now the fourth component comes about designing the final state. That is left for us to understand at the later stage, but mathematically, are you able to follow what I am saying? So let us just quickly design a machine so that you are able to follow what exactly we are trying to say. So let's take this machine where you have the start state Q0. This is also a final state, let's say, and this is A. At B it is going to, this is state Q1. Now this is for B, it remains at the same place, but at A it is going further to this state Q2, and this actually is like a dead state. So at A and B you remain in the same. While there is another DFA, this is for, let's say that Q1, Q2, Q0, Q1, Q2. Let's take the names as R0 and R1. So at A comma B you are going below, at A comma B you are coming up. So these are two DFAs, as you can feel. If I have to design the product automaton, apart from the final state of the product automaton, designing the rest is something very simple. So let us design, so all possible tuples. So first of all Q0 with R0, then Q1 with R0, and then Q2 with R0. All possibilities I have taken, right? First element here, second element this, first element here, first element this, sorry, second element this, and then taking the next, where the first element is coming still as the first state of the DFA Q0, but the second element is coming as the second state. So Q0 R1, you have Q1 R1, and then you have Q2 R1. Now this is the all possible states. So we had 3 into 2, 6 states we are getting as the Cartesian product, right? So sorry, if you see it here, okay, if you see it here, we have already done this part. Now we have to design the start state. So that is the state where the first state is the start state of the first machine, and the second element is the start state of the second machine, and then doing the transition part. So let us finish it. So the start state will be this state. Why? Because Q0 is the start state of the first machine and R0 is the start state of the second machine. So this will remain as the start state. Okay. Now if I have to further design the transition, so Q0 R0 at A, where will it go? Q0 R0 at A, if I have to see, so I have to see for Q0. If you see this definition, it says if you have to find for Q and P at A, where does it go? You have to see for Q at A on first machine where you are going, that will become the first element, and P at A, where are you going on the second machine, you have to see that. So Q0 R0 at A, where should I go? Q0, okay, there are Q1 R1, Q0 R1. Q0 at A, if you see, it will be just Q0, right? So it says remain at Q0 itself, but here it says don't remain at the same, you go to R1. So Q0 R1, and Q0 R1 is a state below, so at A I will be going down. At B, where should I go? So at B it is saying move forward to Q1. At B it is going down, so I will be going to Q1 R1 at B. Right. Now, the same you can do for all the states. So I am drawing quickly. You can just verify and tell me if I am not doing it correctly. Q1 R0 at B. Q1 R0 at B, it will go down. Q1 R0 at A. Now, Q2 R0 at A. Q2 R0 at A, it remains here, and for B also it remains here, right? For A and B both the same. Now Q0 R1 at A, where do you go? Q0 R1 at A, you go back above. Q1 R1 at B, sorry, no, for this one also you have to say for B. Q0 R1 at B, so Q0 at B I go to Q1, R1 at B I go to R0. So now I will be going here for B. Q1 R1 at B, you will be going back to this for B, and for A you will be crossing like this. Now Q2 R1 at A and B, you will be just going above, right? So is it clear to design the product automaton? So 3 steps we are done. We have identified what is the start state, we have identified the possible states, we have identified the transitions. Now we can use these product automatons to prove at least few of the operations are closed for regular languages, especially for the union, your intersection, and difference. These 3 operations can be quickly and trivially proved to be closed for regular languages. How? If I take my set F equals to F1 cross F2. Okay, by the way, there is again something that you need to prove after this construction, and you will realize that it holds that delta cap for, if you take Q01, Q02, right, on some W, that is equivalent to delta cap of Q01 delta 1 for W, comma delta 2 cap on Q02 comma W, and you take basically this tuple. What it is saying that if you try to find how this machine is, the extended transition function works on a tuple. So this is from a starting state of the product automaton. If you take any string, where it will take you? It will take you, if you would have gone using the first transition function on W, starting from the start state of first machine, comma the extended transition function expressing that using the second machine and the second machine's start symbol at W, where you will end up. So it records that. And again, this you might have an intuition very trivially just to by looking at the expression, but you can prove it using induction, which is given in the book. So I again, it is, these all are very similar. You define it for the epsilon, then you consider it for some w, and you can prove for some string of length more than w, one symbol more than that. So I am leaving that. Again, to prove this, you must read the proof for this. But if it is true, then it says that if on the first machine on a string w you are going anywhere, on the second machine on w you are going anywhere, I am able to record it. So what basically I am saying, that there is machine 1, basically starting from the start state of machine 1, if you are going to some state p1 on w, and on the machine 2 on starting from q02, again if this w takes you to some p2, so this machine m that you have designed using the product automaton is starting from q01, q02 on w. When you will be running it, it will actually take you to the state p1, p2. That's all we are actually saying there. And if that is the case, so it records basically that this product automaton, that if you are running both the machines simultaneously, where it will be for a given string. So it is a way of, this product automaton is a way of clubbing two machines together and running them together for a given string. Right. Now, going back to this question, that if I fix the final states as f1 cross f2, can you tell me what my machine is going to accept? If I fix my final states as f1 cross f2, what it is going to accept? So basically, if I have to say here, I am saying that you make f1 cross f2 is q0 cross r0. So this state becomes the final state, and q0 cross r1, sorry, q1 cross r0. So this becomes the final state. Certainly these two states become the final state, but what is the language of this machine? If I do this, my D, language of D is equals to language of D1. What operation with language of D2? That is my question. What operation will come here if I do this? Okay, good. Someone said union. Okay, what is the language of this first machine? Okay. What is the language of this machine? Some A followed by some B, right? So it says that all the A's, if you try to read the language of machine, this is saying that A's, some number of A's, it may be 0 or more number of A's followed by at least one number of B's. That's all. It's like if I have to represent it, it is actually, if I have to represent this, it is representing of the form A plus B, sorry, you have A star and you have B into B star, something like that. At least one B is coming because of, oh sorry, at least one B might not be there, right? Correct. I think what Shashwat has raised is correct. It is just saying that it can, all the A's follow B's. So it is sequence of A's followed by sequence of B's. That's all. All the A's will be in the prefix for the B's. And what about the second machine? It is, the length is even. Simple. What do you think, Anmol? Triple B will be accepted or not? Starting from this, first B takes you here, then another 2, B will accept it here. So machine 1 accepts that all the A's should be followed by all the B's, a sequence of A's followed by a sequence of B's. You cannot have A's appearing after any single B. That's all. That's what it ensures, that once you started with B's, at least one B appeared. After that you cannot have A. As soon as you get A, you go to a dead state. Actually the right way is writing it as A star B star, that any number of A's followed by any number of B's, but after B's you cannot have A's again, right? And this one is saying that the length of the string is even. Right. Now, if you do that, you say F1 cross F2 and you are picking these two states, what happens? So, F1 cross F2, if you will realize Q0 or 0, what is the language of this product automaton? Correct, Anmol. I think any number of B's will be accepted because the start state is a final state and the second state is also a final state. Right. So as soon as you tick the first B, you can go to the, without picking any A, you can go to the B, second state, right? If you are running for any number of B's, you, with the first B you are going here until you don't bring any A after it, it is still acceptable in Q1, right? It is okay to not have any number of A's, just B's, or it is also okay to have just A's. But you have to make sure that whenever you have A's, it is already appearing first and then followed by B's. So A's followed by B's, some A's with some B's, right? Now, what is the language of this product automaton? Yes, the right answer is it is intersection of the two languages. right? Why intersection? Because you will realize that it accepts only when you have even number of the strings, but at the same time it also ensures that only when you have A's followed by B's, and that too the overall length of the string should be even, because if you pick A, B, it will not accept. It is as per the first DFA but not as per the second DFA, right? When you run for A and B, you go to a non-final state. Same happens if you have A, B, A. This string is correct as per the first language, the second DFA. Why? You, for A you go R1, then for B you go up above, for A you come here, for A you come here. So this string is acceptable. So this is belonging to the language of the second DFA. This string is belonging to the language of the first DFA, yet each of these strings are not acceptable on the other machines, and that's why you will realize A is also not accepted here. A, then B, and then for A and A you are reaching to this state, which is not acceptable. So this machine is accepting only those strings which follow the rules and regulations of both the machines. So for example, if you have A and B, or you have 3 A's and a B, that is also. So 3 A's will take you back to this place and a B will take you to this one, which is acceptable. So this one, it is of even length, it is A's followed by B's. So intersection is the right answer. When you fix the set F in this definition here, for this F, if you fix it as F1 cross F2, it actually starts taking care of the intersection operation. My question is, you should think and come back in next class if I have to do it for union and for the subtraction, what should be done. So if I have to find L1 minus L2, what should be the configuration for the final states here, and if I have to do for union, I think union is simple. I can tell you, you can try doing it. It is Q1 cross F2 union with F1 cross Q2. Try doing it, you will realize it's. So it is saying that in the tuple at least one of the states should be final from either of the states. So it should be Q1 cross F2 union with F1 cross Q2. Same for symmetry, this difference you have to find out what will be there. So that is your homework, you should be thinking about that. We will see if we will have a discussion class tomorrow or not, but that is not yet certain. I will see and I will let you know on WhatsApp. But if not, still you guys should be practicing. In the next class, we will start at this point and then we will talk about other properties. Any questions on this?